What's up, everybody? It's Andrea. Today, it's Family Ties in Space. Picard is kind of a heartless a-hole, and we ask the question, why not just put the villagers to sleep and then fix the holodeck? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Shereese, today we're breaking down Season 7, Episode 13, Pegasus Part 2. Oh, no, we're done with Pegasus. We're done with Pegasus. This one's Homeward.
Which Andrea kept calling Homeward Bound.
Yeah.
Which was such a great movie and so much better of an experience than watching this episode was. Let me just throw that out there.
I know. I was like, Homeward Bound? Homebound? No. Is this one called Homeward Bound? No. This one's Homeward. It's written by Spike Steingasser, which is a really cool name, and directed by Alexander Singer. He's directed a handful of TNG episodes, but this is his last one that he's directed. Here's the plot of Homeward. Who cares? Who fucking cares? Worf's foster brother violates the Prime Directive in an effort to save a doomed alien race. I mean,
I think that's a really interesting premise, actually.
It
that
is.
alone, what you just read, you're like, oh my gosh. Well, that's interesting. Well, what happens? Like, tell me the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch the story and you're like,
okay.
Well, maybe I didn't want to know the story. You know, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. This is kind of, my initial thoughts are going to bleed into my final thoughts, I guess. Well, no, my initial thoughts are actually different. My initial thoughts are, I remember this one being really dumb.
Mm-hmm.
I remember suddenly finding out Worf has a brother.
Yeah.
That we've never met and never heard of before in the 7 seasons of the show.
We'll never hear from again.
No, and we have met the Rashenkos. We've talked about the Rashenkos. We've talked about Worf's childhood. We've talked about wherever Alexander goes when he's not on the ship. And we've never mentioned this long lost adoptive brother. So that's what really stuck with me about this episode was I remember it being dumb. I remember some random brother that we never heard of before. And that's all I remember. And I've only seen this episode like twice, like 2 or 3 times. Once when it aired, once when Star Trek came to streaming, and I think it was on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe one other time when I forgot what the episode was about. And so I rewatched it.
You thought you were watching Homeward Bound, and you were like, damn it, this is not it at all.
Where's the little cats and little dogs?
I know. And let me tell you, Shereese is not like a cat or dog person per se. So if you think it's cute, it's really cute.
But that movie's super freaking cute.
Yeah, it's adorable.
Okay, your initial thoughts about this interesting masterpiece.
Okay, well, at first the name didn't ring a bell at all because with the title like Homeward, it's so vague. It really could have been like anything. So I was like, it didn't ring any kind of bell. But then once I asked you like, what the F is Homeward? And you were like, oh yeah, Worf's, long lost brother. I was like, like I just groaned. I just
That's
remembered.
True. You did do that.
I did. I just remembered a whole bunch of whining and complaining and like, you shouldn't have done this. They would have died. Except it's like an hour of this. And it's like, oh God. I will say
memory.
I will say my final thoughts are pretty different than my initial thoughts. But yeah, my initial thoughts, I was like, can't we just watch the Pegasus again? Because I will say between last week and this week, I have now watched the Pegasus 3 times because it's so freaking good.
It's so good. And it's so funny because you know everything that's going to happen. You know the big reveal. You know who's behind everything. But watching it unfold again is such a pleasure. It's really amazing. I compare it to having a delicious meal from your favorite restaurant. Mm-hmm. And every time you have that meal and you anticipate the meal and you've had the meal before, it's just as good the next time. And you love all the parts about it. And sometimes nuances, it's the same thing.
Well, can I actually, in that story vein, can I tell you my mom went out to eat one time, like 20 years ago, I was just a kid. And she brought home some leftover like lamb. My mom loves lamb. And like everybody in my family does. So I came home from work. I was like wiped out. I was so tired. And I like ate the leftover lamb. And my mom came home and she was like, gonna get that lamb. I've been thinking about this lamb all day. Where the F is my lamb? She was so pissed.
Oh, so heartbreaking. Because she had been thinking about it all day long.
Had been like fantasizing about tearing into that lamb when she got home. And like, she just found like the styrofoam container in the trash with like a couple of leaves of garnish left over and some lamb ribs picked clean. She was so mad. She's still 20 years later will bring up that lamb. It better not be like that time you ate my lamb. Like, Mom, that was like 2004. Get over it, please.
Can we move on? No, we can't.
Can I go to the restaurant and get you more lamb and bring it? No, I wanted that one. Okay,
nothing can replace the anticipation. And there was nothing in that fridge, in that pantry, in that whole house that was going to be equivalent to that meal she had been fantasizing about for 24 straight hours.
Girl, if I straight up say, do you remember the time I ate your lamb? She'll get upset all over again for another 24 hours. Like she'll just be pissed all over again. So therefore I don't bring up the lamb. Yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of lamb, which we're not speaking of lamb now. Yeah. The show starts on the bridge and they are getting a distress call from, I think it's Baral 2.
Yes.
That's what I wrote. I don't know if that's how you say it. Okay, Baral 2. And they're getting a call from Worf's adoptive brother, foster brother, whatever, his earthling brother, Nikolai Roshenko, who was stationed there as a cultural observer. So they're getting some kind of distress call and, they're trying to figure out what's going on. And apparently the atmosphere of the entire planet is dissipating, which is probably the most terrifying thing I've heard of on the show so far. I mean, this isn't like volcanic eruptions, which are also really scary, and earthquakes, which are also really scary, but just like the atmosphere is disappearing. You won't have any more atmosphere. Everybody will suffocate in seconds. This is really horrifying. And it turns out that the entire planet is going to be uninhabitable in less than 36 hours. So I asked the question.
That's crazy.
I asked the question that I always ask when they have these situations, like in the episode with Data's mom, why did you wait so long to call? But in this episode, someone actually asked that question.
Yes, they did.
And someone has a legitimate answer. So Riker's like, why did they wait so long? And Data says, well, this kind of phenomenon is so unpredictable that and it's so rare that it happens really quickly. You don't even know how fast it's going to happen. So the fact that it's 36 hours away, they didn't know that when they contacted us 4 days ago. So
yeah. Totally. It's just like this all is just falling apart really, really fast. Like we reached out to you at the very first sign of trouble. Unlike that other episode where they're like, we've had 12 years to think about it and we will just now send a distress signal when there's 13 months left in our plan. It's like, okay, all right. So the stratosphere is breaking down. This atmospheric dissipation is taking place. The planet is going to be uninhabitable in just a few hours. And at this point, the ship is rocked by a new term, a plasmonic burst. I was like, ooh, Trek words. It's no real danger to the Enterprise other than some intermittent system failures and power surges. And I was like, really? That's no real danger? Really?
It seems dangerous. I thought the same thing. I was like,
system failures,
and I know they have
power surges.
I know they have lots of backup systems and stuff. So that way, they have a lot of redundancies on the ship. But still, I'm just like, my mind automatically goes to sick bay in the middle of a surgery and the lights go out. Or something, and you're like, oh, I cut the wrong thing, or I don't know. I mean, it's Star Trek, so they can just put it back. But like, that's what I automatically think of like, what if it's a critical system that's damaged at a critical time? Warp core containment. Like, let's not have that go off.
That's what I was thinking. To me, it felt like saying, like, ma'am, your son is going to be fine. We may have to cut off like an arm and take a couple of organs out, but otherwise fine. I was like, this sounds really drastic. Like, this is okay. But Worf and
they're not worried about it, so we're not supposed to worry about it.
No, I guess we're not. Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to be small systems somehow, just like holodecks, and replicators.
Hydroponics or something. Yeah, I don't know, whatever. So Worf ends up leading a single away team because they were like, "This is too dangerous. Just go by yourself."
Actually, it was because the people are pre-warp.
That's right.
So they couldn't send a full away team. They couldn't be hey, the starship's here to save you, because all these people are pre-warp. So you're not supposed to like mix and mingle with them or be seen by them. So Worf has to get surgically altered so he looks like a Baralian. And then he's going to go down alone so that you don't have a whole, 12 people showing up in the middle of this crazy crisis being like, hey, we just stumbled upon your village.
Yes.
So Worf goes alone.
Worf does go alone. Thank you. And Picard does say, I want you surgically altered so you look like the Baralians. And like, my thought is this. If y'all can make some prosthetics for this TV show that you're shooting, why can't you just replicate some good prosthetics? I feel like surgery is the most drastic choice. And also, we are under an extreme time crunch. Like, what is this, like a 5-minute surgery? Like, why do several members of the crew end up being surgically altered?
Well, like I don't know, but it doesn't.
The Romulans, and like,
it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal.
It's prosthetics on them.
Well, but think about it. Worf's Klingon physiology is bigger than any prosthetics. He would have to have like the big head phenomenon we saw in that aging episode, because his head is so much. Yeah, because his head is so much bigger than the Baralan head, and it would look really weird on him specifically. But yeah, it seems whenever they get surgically altered, it only takes them about 5 minutes.
I
It's
know.
not that big of a deal. And then they just
recovery is like 20 seconds.
They put them back immediately. So I feel like plastic surgery in the future is just, it's just like brushing your teeth. Super simple, super easy, no risk.
I guess so. But also when Worf does beam down, his outfit has like a hood on it and it completely covers his head. So was it really necessary to alter him?
All his forehead ridges had to be removed.
Which is crazy because a hood covered all that. So you wouldn't see it anyway.
But
again, are you saying because the big head?
Oh, yeah, the big head, like the hood wouldn't, I don't think it would reach around. I don't think it would cover the bob. Like, I don't think it would make it all the way. The head is like,
I'm so glad we're past the Worf Bob years. Oh my God.
Because his long hair looks glorious. Like the episode really parallels where Troy took his hair down and was like playing with it. Yeah. He's just like, wow, look at this man and look at his glorious mane.
Thick, luscious locks of his. Yeah.
So much better than the bob.
The bob reminds me of like the blunder years. Like when you see pictures from people like in middle school and they've got like all really shitty haircuts. Like the Worf Bob is the blunder years for sure. Now, actually, during this surgery or right before, Worf does reveal to Beverly that he and Nikolai are not very close. Nikolai is much older. He has a mind of his own. He's a natural leader, which is good, but he attended Starfleet Academy and left only after 1 year. Like, which sounds like you and I, but we're like, yeah, I don't want to follow your stupid orders. Your orders are dumb. I'm not doing that. So
I think I actually would. I'd probably make it through Starfleet Academy, and I'd probably really enjoy it. I don't think I'd be. I don't know. One of the things I love about the promise of Star Trek and of the Federation and stuff is this whole idea of we work doing things we love because we love them. It's really about contribution, and their currency is like passion for your job and like expertise and talent, which I really like the idea of that. I like that a lot. Yeah. I do think they're a little bit naive about the fact that they're a military organization and they're unaware of it. Like, I don't know, some things don't really make sense, but as far as the culture and like what they're trying to spread, I think it's really cool. I will say that this was the attempt to me, this scene was the attempt to explain why we've never heard of this person before in our lives. Because Beverly says, you don't talk much about him. Much? You don't talk all about him. Nobody talks about him. Your parents don't talk about him. No one talks about it. He does not exist until this moment for this episode. And then immediately after this episode, we never see him or talk about him again for good reason. So I don't know. I feel like that was good to close that plot hole or like that loop, but also stretched credulity for me. In any case,
it really did.
That's what they go with.
Whatever. So he ends up beaming down into some caverns, which were actually filmed at Griffith Park. There's some like caverns and caves there, which I did not know about, that you could go into. And one of the Borellians is like, wait, who are you? Like, we haven't seen you around here before. And Worf is like, I'm a traveler. I come from far. And this voice says, I'd know that voice anywhere. And it's Nikolai, who is played by Paul Sorvino. And if you guys do not know, Paul Sorvino, he actually passed away just last year. But he was already like well into his 80s. But he is very famous for playing the head of the Lucchese crime family in the movie Goodfellas, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. He is such a like terrifying mob boss figure. And then here, he's just this like very passionate, but like lovable, cuddly kind of man. And I'm like, wow, Paul Sorvino, what an actor to make him like look like such a sweetheart teddy bear, as opposed to this like absolutely heartless murderer in this other movie that came out like nearly the same year. I was like, dang, holy crap. Yeah. If you have not seen Goodfellas and you're into mob movies, watch it. It's ridiculously good. But yeah, it's Nikolai, and Nikolai's so overjoyed to see him, and he tells the others that Worf is here to save them, and he's a seer, and he's going to get us to safety. And I was like, oh boy. Worf is like, wait, I'm what? I'm doing what?
And the only reason Worf went down there was because Nikolai was not responding from the like the station he was at, like the observation station or whatever. They couldn't get any communications with him, so that he was like, I'm worried about my brother. I don't know if he's okay. So he beamed down to find Nikolai. He went undercover just in case Nikolai was somehow amongst the locals. And it turns out not only is he amongst the locals, but he's like leading them. Yeah. And you're like, what the F? What about the Prime Director? What are you doing? Yeah. You know, I mean, he at least had the sense to make himself look like a Borellian. So there's that. He did do that one thing, but he's like, hey, everybody, this is my brother, and he's come to help us. He's going to save everyone. And now Worf is put on the spot. Like,
Yep.
I just came to find you. I didn't sign up for any of these people.
No, I did not sign up for the group deal. Okay. Like, I'm just trying to get you out of here.
This is just a 2-for-1 coupon. This
Yeah.
is not like, it's not a group deal, but
no. Notice, by the way, they're all in like Renaissance garb to show that they're pre-warp, which I thought was kind of
so
funny.
glorious. I love these outfits.
Like, okay.
I love the hoods too. I think they look so cool.
The shoulders that are like detached with like the string in between or the thread in between to kind of like stitch them together. Oh, super cool. Super cool. Worf is like, what have you done, Nikolai? So he and Worf beam up to meet with the captain, and they tell the Brellans, like, we're going to go to the surface and get more supplies. We'll be back. So they go up to the ship and meet with the captain, and Worf is already like surgically re-altered because he looks like himself again.
And so is Nikolai.
Yeah, it's like boom, boom. Like they probably did it in transport. And Worf is not.
Did.
They probably did, right? Like biofilters and surgical.
Just put it back the way you found it.
Yeah, exactly. Just take his pattern from like a week ago and then reconstitute that one. Now, Picard is not down to save these people. He's pissed that Nikolai has violated the Prime Directive. And I love that Beverly was like, if we do nothing, we are making the conscious decision to let the Brellans die, which I love. And here's something I think you and I have spoken about very passionately, like in our friendship. People sometimes think that like, if you don't know what to do, just don't do anything, or you freeze, or you choose to do nothing. Doing nothing is still a choice. Mm-hmm. You are still choosing to let these people die. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but for fuck's sake, if you can in season 1 or 2 race across the galaxy to give some vaccine to a bunch of people who are dying of a plague, mm-hmm. How is that not interfering with Prime Directive?
Well, because the people dying from the plague are warp capable species.
But the whole point is like non-interference, though.
But
like, don't interfere.
But Prime Directive only has to do with people who are pre-warp. You don't want to let them know that they're aliens until they're ready. So that's what the Prime Directive is about. And then the other quote unquote non-interference is more like government politics and stuff. But even that's a little. Because, I mean, if you are in the Federation, then we can interfere as much as we want because you're part of us. Yeah. Right. So, like, specifically when they're talking about Prime Directive, it's always pre-warp civilizations that they don't want to tell them that they're aliens. They don't want to tell them that they're spaceships. They don't want to tell them all this stuff because it's going to like mess up the way that culture's evolving. So that's the purpose of the Prime Directive. But in this case, this culture will not exist anymore. So whether or not they know about aliens is irrelevant because the culture won't even exist if you don't do anything within 36 hours, right?
It kind of doesn't matter if you like land the Enterprise in the middle of the town square because like everybody's dying in a minute. Because
everyone's going to die. So what Troy is saying, so what Nikolai is saying is kind of your argument of like, well, the Prime Directive, the point of it is to preserve culture. And if we let them die, we lose the culture. Yeah. And Troy corrects him to say, no, the Prime Directive is actually non-interference with pre-warp species. Like that's actually what it is. But then Beverly interrupts by saying, yeah, but either way, like you said, not making the choice to not do anything is making a choice. It is interfering and it is still violating the Prime Directive because now we're aware of it. Like if we didn't know and we were just flying by and it happened, like whatever. But now we know and we're just going to sit here and watch them die. And that's
horrific.
That is making a choice. And it's a terrible choice. And so it's really between a rock and a hard place because at the end of the day, they're not saving the whole planet. That's not going to happen. They're only going to be able to save, if anything, this little tiny handful of people.
Several hundred people, or something.
Yeah, and I mean, from what we see, it's like 10 people. But let's pretend like it's 100 people. 100 people does not a planet make. That is an extremely small genetic pool to do anything with. However, it's more than zero. So it's a really hard situation. But Picard, ironically, or not ironically, but uncharacteristically, draws the line of we've got to stick with the Prime Directive this time.
Yeah, which he has up until now been treating as the Prime suggestion. So it's like, are you serious, dude? Now you draw the line.
But I get it though. You can't save the whole planet. But to just sit there and literally watch the planet die.
Yeah, that's fucking brutal.
How can you do that?
Picard, like, obviously Nikolai is really upset by this, as anybody I think would be.
Yeah.
And Picard denies Nikolai's request to return to the surface for the data that he's gathered. So I was like, damn, that's cold. So
because he would get up to something. That's why Picard is like, no, you can stay yourself right here. Use that panel right behind you, and you can access it.
Link.
Yeah, Nikolai's like, dang it. I thought I was going to get over on him on that one.
Yeah, he was going to try to do something. Picard's like, no, dog. So the atmosphere is dissipating very quickly. The planet now only has 3 minutes left until life cannot be supported. So Nikolai comes to the bridge to say he's completed the data uplink from the surface and would like Picard's permission to integrate his research with the ship's library computer. And Picard's like, okay, fine. So as the atmosphere continues to break down, Picard is like, put it on view screen. So not only do you not want to help these people, you want a front row view of the entire planet's death.
Well,
I was like, damn,
says,
dude, that's fucking cold.
What he says is this is our way to honor the lives lost. Like, we need to like recognize this moment and not just be like, whatever, and fly off. Like, we need to stay and actually kind of memorialize this moment and recognize that this moment is awful and like honor these lives that are being lost. So that was his point, is that it was kind of like a memorial service. Nikolai responds with, I don't find anything about this honorable, and then storms off the bridge.
I'm with him.
And
I'm with Nikolai. I'm like, dude.
You just see like the look on Beverly's face, right? She's just like looking down with her head down, like, ugh. Yeah. And I mean,
girl, if you and I were asphyxiating on that planet and there's a ship up there giving us a memorial service, I'd be like, man, fuck your moment of silence. Beam me out of here. How?
Yeah, if it's between death and learning that aliens are real, and they're like really nice aliens who also look exactly like me, yeah, beam me up.
Girl, what was this? Like last week, the US government finally admitted to like alien existence, and we were like, cool. Eggs are $35 a dozen. The planet is burning alive, and I can't afford to keep a roof over my head. So unless these aliens are here to give us some fucking solutions, I don't give a fuck. And like that's so spot on. That's how I would feel. I'd be like, the planet's dying. I do not care about aliens.
Yep, don't care.
Just beam me up. I don't care.
But you can beam me out of here. Great. Let's do that.
Yeah,
let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah. Now, as the atmosphere continues to break down, Picard does that whole memorial thing. And they do have this little like flicker on the screen, right? Like as they go to leave for like Starbase 87, a fuse blows in the science station. There's a power drain coming from deck 10. Like we've got some stuff starting to happen because of those plasmonic bursts. So they head down to deck 10 to figure out what the power drain is about. And they find holodeck 5 in use.
And by they, you mean Worf.
Worf, yeah, sorry. Worf tries to enter, but it's like override. Like
here's the funny thing that happens. Worf tries to enter, and it's like the holodeck is in use. Since when has that stopped anyone from walking in?
Right,
Never.
walking into Barclay's fantasy maps. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, being in use does not lock the doors. Clearly, we've seen that many a time. But so then he goes, okay, well, security override. And they're like, security override is disabled or something like that. And now he's like, okay, wait a minute. What? I'm the security. Who overrode this? And then the doors open. And inside of the holodeck, there's like a cave. So Worf steps into the cave and he hears Nikolai going, hey, Worf, come over here.
Yeah. What? Did you have a Ring camera on the other side that you could see it was Worf?
That's what I was like. He had to have something programmed to let him know that someone was trying to get in and only open the doors when Worf was there, which was so bizarre, but whatever. So he comes in and then Nikolai like turns on the view screen inside of the holodeck. I don't even know how to describe it, but they open some kind of window.
It's almost like a two-way mirror, kind of like a police station two-way mirror where it's like you can see over to the other side but they can't see you, and it's the villagers and they can't hear or see Nikolai or Worf, and Nikolai's like, I did what you refused to do. I saved them. I was like, oh, out of the frying pan into the fire now.
Yeah, I thought, wait, Nikolai, what's your plan here? Because these people still need a planet. Did you have a planet with you or in mind? But he wasn't thinking that far. He was just like, I can't let them die. If I could save anybody, I'll save anybody. So
it seemed a little short-sighted to me. So I was like, okay, so you saved 20 people. Like, what the fuck are you going to do now? They still think they're on the planet. They think they're in these underground caverns, but they're in the holodeck, and you beamed them up when they were sleeping. And now what? Right?
Yeah. And you have to answer to Picard, because this isn't going to be a secret, because now Picard has to help you. He's not going to put him back on the planet with no atmosphere.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. But like Nikolai does explain that he's been thinking of something like this ever since he realized the planet was doomed. So the trick was beaming the villagers aboard without anyone noticing. And he was able to like blank out the sensors and make it appear as plasmonic interference. So like when the main view screen like flickered right after the planet died, they thought it was just interference, but it was really Nikolai, and the Boralians were beamed up while they slept. They had no idea they're not on the planet. And I was like, okay, that's kind of well done.
Yeah,
but
this
now
is
you
similar.
got to talk to Picard, though.
This is similar to last week's episode, the Pegasus, where like every question is answered. So that I will say is very
That's
nice.
True.
There's no part of this episode where you're like, but why? And they don't turn around and tell you exactly why. So that's really helpful for you to find out, oh, this is how he did it. This is why he did it. This is that part that happened. Remember that part? This is what connects with this. And you're like, oh, cool. But at the same time, just from a story standpoint, I was like, he is so excited about telling Worf how he pulled off this great caper. And like, what's your plan now, buddy? Like, what do you, like I just felt like read the room. You know, Worf is not going, Nikolai, but how did you do it? Please tell me, Sherlock. This is not the moment. He's going, Nikolai, what did you do? Like, this is a bad thing. Not like tell me all the intricate details of how you pulled this off. 100%. So now he has to tell Picard. And if you thought Picard was pissed before, he is super pissed now.
Well, I do like this line that Nikolai says, and he says, I wasn't going to let these people die just because your captain started quoting Federation dogma to me. And I was like, you know what, sir? You're right. You're not part of the Federation. You're not part of Starfleet. You're not bound by their rules or their laws. Like, I mean, granted, you kind of piggyback them onto a Federation starship without anybody knowing. So that's kind of fucked up. But otherwise, like, I love that he refuses to be bound by this abstraction. Like, the lives of the villagers mean more to him than that. And I was like, that is rad. Like, that sounds like something I would do. And you seem like Worf, where you're like, now what? Now what's your plan? So I'm like, ooh, I don't really have a plan.
What Worf says is he says, like, it's all about like duty and obeying the captain. You should have done what you were told. In that sense, I'm completely opposite to Worf and would never make it in the military for that reason.
You're not, I'm sorry, you're not my captain. I don't have to listen to you.
Yeah, I don't blindly follow orders of anyone ever unless it's like get down and there's gunshots, but I probably would do that even if you didn't say get down, right? Like I don't really. So in that sense I didn't really vibe with Worf it's about duty and obey and whatever. However, I am definitely the one who's like, what's your plan, buddy? Because Nikolai to me seems very spur of the moment, which is fine in a lot of aspects of life. But then there are major things that affect whole civilizations and societies and the Federation and all of this stuff. And I get that he wanted to save their lives, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I get that he did something kind of crazy to save their lives. And like, they're alive. So, I mean, you know, there's some good things, but he just doesn't seem to be really thinking through any of his decisions. And that is would be really frustrating to me. I would try to get this guy off my ship as soon as possible because what he's going to do next.
Yeah, he's a little bit of a wild card. Yeah, and he totally just disregarded Captain's orders, even though Nikolai's not in Starfleet, but still, Worf is like, you have disgraced yourself and you've disgraced me, and I don't want to ever see you anymore. But honestly, in that moment, though, I was like, get over yourself, Worf. God damn it, you're annoying. This is the shit that makes me not be able to stand the Klingons. This whole one-dimensional, like, honor is meaningless without the ability to put yourself in the line for, like, what really counts. And I get for Worf that the Borelans' lives don't really count for him, but, like, for Nikolai, it really does. Like, he's been observing these people. He feels like sympathy, a bond with them. It's like, dude, of course he wasn't just gonna let them die. Like, what did you think he was gonna do, you guys? So of course Picard is pissed AF. He's like, you know, your career is over, right? Which is such a Picard thing to say because he like lives for his career. But Nikolai's like, I already know that. And Picard did say, like, what are you gonna do? Like, how are you gonna put them on a new planet that looks different from Baral? Like, they're gonna know the difference, man. But I will say, Nikolai has more up his sleeve than we initially give him credit for. He already had a whole plan in place, which, if I may say, is kind of brilliant. He's going to go back. It's a
really good plan. It's legit.
It's a great plan. He's going to go back to the holodeck and tell the Boralans that they are going to travel to a new place where the storms are no longer a danger. And as they travel, the holodeck is going to change the terrain for them. So by the time they find the correct M-class planet to resettle them, the holodeck will match that planet. So then they'll beam them down when they're like asleep again or whatever. And like, they're going to wake up on this planet and never know that they were anywhere else. And I was like, dude, this is a great plan. This is such a good plan.
It should really be added to the playbook for, you know, future saving people who are pre-warp or whatever. Like, this is a good plan.
Girl, there needs to be a playbook, and each play needs to have a name. You know, like in Ocean's 11, they're like, it's time to go with a Queen Mary, and everybody knows what the Queen Mary play is, right?
Yeah.
Except for us, the viewers. Like, they need something like this. Like, it's time
and
to
call it the Nikolai.
Yeah, or something.
Roshenko. Ooh, that's like such a good. Yeah, that would be a better name. Yeah, I like that.
Roshenko maneuver or some crap. Yeah. It's a really good plan. I am absolutely not hating on this plan at all.
So next thing you know, we're in this lab that looks so freaking cool. I want to live in it. What'd you say?
Astrometrics lab. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, so cool. It's just beautiful. It's amazing. This set is just gorgeous. So anyways, we're in this lab that I'm drooling over. And Geordi's like, uh-oh, we've got a problem. And so you're like, okay, what's the problem? What other problem do we have? It turns out that the plasmatic disturbances affected a bunch of systems more long-term than they thought. And one of the systems was the holodeck. And he can fix it, but in order to fix it, he has to shut down the program, fix whatever's wrong, and then reboot the program. You know, turn it off and turn it on, like the classic solve to any technological problem.
Totally.
The problem is
blow
that
on the cartridge and reboot it. Yeah.
Blow it, clean it, pop it back in, hit it. Yeah. Usually that also helps.
Sometimes
hit it really hard.
It. Yeah. Smack the top of the TV. So adjust the aerials.
If you smack the holodeck really hard, unplug it, plug it in, turn it off and on, that should solve almost all of its problems.
Walk out, walk back in. It'll just reset it. Yeah.
It'll reset. But they were like, but we can't do that because, you know, the Browns, we're trying to maintain this fiction that they're in these caves or whatever. But the problem is we don't know how long the holodeck is going to last, and things are going to start breaking down, and the Browns are going to start to see weird stuff happening in their caves and their planet, and it could freak them out. So here was my question. Why can't Beverly just put everyone to sleep with gas?
Oh, that's
and they just reboot the effing holodeck. Just reboot it. I was like, I don't understand.
Or girl, just take it one step further and have Beverly put them all out with gas until they're like at the correct planet.
Well, because they still have to do the journey to the.
Yeah, that's true.
Or transport them from holodeck 5 to holodecks 1 through 4.
Or 6 through fucking 20.
I mean, even if we're saying like the whole holodeck system is down, they need to fix everything. I was like, just put them to sleep, fix it, turn it back on, let them wake up, you know, so, and it's the holodeck, you can control it. So when they wake up, it's still the middle of the night for them.
Yeah.
And then they just keep it moving.
Yeah.
So I felt like this was a really easy solution that I should not have been able to think of so quickly.
Yeah, well, I'm surprised that you thought of it. I was over here like a viewer, like, what's going to happen? Oh my God, it's not working. Oh dear, what's going to happen? That's all I kept thinking. I was not like, why didn't you just do this? Which actually, normally you and I do this, where we're like, why don't you just put them to sleep? I don't know. It's been that kind of day, maybe. I have no idea.
There's like a little glitch in the holodeck and they start freaking out, and then Geordi fixes it, and they're like, Worf is like, that's a sign that our journey will be successful. And they're all high-fiving each other. And you're like, oh gosh, what else is going to go wrong in this holodeck?
Yes, I did think that was really funny. Worf was thinking quickly there. He was like, it's the sign of LaForge. Whenever the lines appear and disappear, it's a good sign for a good fortune to travelers.
And somehow saying LaForge helped Geordi hear their conversation.
Yeah, I was like, Geordi, you've been on comm this entire time. So he was able to kind of like reverse the polarity and like get it to fix itself.
He goes, I got you, Worf. Give me a second.
Yeah.
Beep, 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 and then it fixes.
And it kind of like faded away. Now, back in Astrometrics, Data and Beverly analyze different M-class planets to find a good match. And Beverly's kind of overwhelmed with the enormity of what they're doing and the unforeseen impacts. She's
literally the opposite of Nikolai. He had none of those problems.
Yeah.
He was not overwhelmed. He had no thoughts.
He was like, here's what we're going to do. Save everybody. End of discussion. Yeah. Now, Data does remind her that they can't possibly foresee all the struggles the Browns will have. They just have to make the best choice given the options that they currently have. And I did think it struck me how similar this conversation would be between you and me, Shereese, because I would be the Beverly being like, oh my God, just think of all the problems they might face. What if the water gets poisoned? What if the whatever? And you're like, well, we can't even remotely begin to predict all of the stuff that's going to be happening. So we just got to pick the best option and go with it. Like, that's so how you and I.
Yeah. Like, and I'd be like, well, it's better than them being on a planet with no atmosphere. Yeah, so whatever happens is better. Whatever happens, if they get bitten by some radioactive snake, still better.
Guys,
still better.
This is how our regular life conversation goes. So I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get through this? And she's like, well, it's better than not being alive. So, you know, I'm like, well, I guess if you say it like that, I mean, you're not wrong. She's not, Shereese is never wrong, by the way.
I'm kind of a one-trick pony with like that. That's the only answer you need to any question That just puts everything instantly in perspective.
It really does. It really does. However, I'm much more like Nikolai, where I'm kind of hot-headed and I don't think through ramifications and I don't think multiple steps ahead. And Shereese is like, well, it's better than being dead. And you're like, yeah, you're right about that. Let's keep going with our plan.
Cannot argue with it. So they're going to be at this so they pick a planet. They're going to be there in 42 hours. I think it's interesting. Beverly cares more about all these big philosophical questions than Nikolai, but really you don't have to at this point.
What else is she going to do? Those surgeries take like 2 seconds. She doesn't have any other role in that.
I know, right? I'm totally on Team Data. It's like, we just got to get them a new home and keep it moving. Like, there's nothing else we could do. So they find a planet. It's going to take 42 hours, but Geordi tells us that the holodeck systems are probably not going to last for 42 hours. So they're just going to all do their best. I mean, again, like,
isn't that what you guys do anyway? They always just do their best.
That's all you can do. You can only ever do your best. You can't do better than your best. So it's like, you guys you're going to do your best and it's going to be whatever it's going to be. And worst case scenario, the whole holodeck fails. They realize they're in a holodeck. They freak out. Nikolai pulls the wool over their eyes and then they all end up on their new planet.
Yeah. Simple.
Fine. Yeah. So anyways, we go back to the caves and there is this kid named Warren who's like drawing on this giant paper. I think it's paper.
It actually looks like balsa wood or something, like very thin wood.
That makes sense.
And they kind of clacked together when he hit him. There were sort of these like slats that were kind of just like woven together. And that's like the chronicle of his people's journey and history. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's telling Worf about it. And he's like, we've had a chronicle for 17 generations, but when all the storms happened, and he's like the chronicler, he's the writer. But when all the storms happened, he could only grab 6 of them before he ran away. Mm-hmm. And he was like, this is the whole history of our people. So having lost 11 generations worth of stories for him is like losing a limb because he's lost a big part of his past and his history. Yeah. And Worf was totally confused by all of this. And Voren's just like, you don't do this in your village? And I was like, whoa. Just play along, Worf. Play along.
Yeah. Yes. Our chronicler
he died in the storms.
And they ripped his arms out of its sockets to pay his death. So we don't talk about it.
Chronicle, and we just So he's like, oh, we just do it differently in our village.
Like Worf is telling this dude like the whole plot of Lion King, and then some hyenas ate him.
Hyenas are kind of like targs, but bigger.
What are targs? You know what? Shut up, boy.
and then Nikolai is like, and you were mad at me?
I know.
Anyways,
on the Klingon homeworld, I mean, on
in our village, in 17 clicks away. Do you guys use clicks like we do? No. Okay, so. Anyways, turns out that's what they do, and that's how they keep their history. But he realizes as he's talking that he dropped one of the histories, and so he's like, I have to go back and get it. And Worf is like, just leave it. Like, we need to all stay together. We've got to keep going on this long, dangerous journey. And he's like, please, 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 it's so important to me. And Worf's like, okay, fine, just make it quick. So Warren turns the corner. He heads a few feet away. He finds it. But the second he finds it, he also sees this flickering light, this flickering kind of an edge of an archway. Mm-hmm. And when he goes to touch the rock, it stabilizes into a complete archway. And when he walks towards it, the doors open and he finds himself in the hallway of the Enterprise.
My immediate thought was, don't step out of the holodeck. You're going to disappear. And then I was like, oh, no, wait. This is
he's real. But he's real.
Different, but you're real. Different phase. In my notes, I wrote in all caps, oh, shit. Because it's like, oh my God.
Commercial for locking the doors, huh?
Yep. The ramifications of what is about to happen and what this person has seen, like he's seen too much. You are now forever going to be separate from your community because you've seen things you weren't supposed to see. Yeah.
And you can't unsee them. So he's like stumbling around, walking through the halls, and other crewmen are seeing him. They're like, hey, do you need help? Or can I help you? Are you okay? Yeah. And as they talk to him, they're freaking him out. So he's like backing away from them, and he ends up backing himself into 10 forward, which is the worst place for him to go when he's overwhelmed and
during happy hour. It's crowded as shit in there. Yep.
Yes. Everyone's got their like $2 tacos and they're all standing around him like, hey man, can I help you? Hey man, your outfit looks a little weird. Hey, are you from around here? And he's just like backing up.
Right.
There's this mob of weirdos.
I'm sorry. I'm still laughing. He said they're $2 tacos. How would Guinan advertise Taco Tuesday if they don't do days of the week like taco star date 42748.3 $1?
Every Stardate ending with a 7. We get tacos.
Tacos. Yeah.
Stardate 0.7 tacos.
Yeah.
I don't know how they would do
totally
that.
My random ass tangent, but
that's that's a valid question though. Valid question. So poor Vorin is losing his cookies. Understandably so. I would also be freaking out. I would totally be freaking out. And Riker has the good sense to be like, everybody, back off. Everyone take 10 steps back.
Like 30 people like slowly approaching him while he's backed into a corner.
It's like the zombie apocalypse.
Like where Picard was trying to hide from the fucking baryon sweep. Like there's nowhere to go after that.
His back is just up against the wall. He's clutching onto his little chronicle for dear life.
Like, stand back. I have my people's history. Please, somebody get away from me. Yeah. And I love it. Troy steps in and she does what Troy does best. She's like, no one's going to hurt you. She does like the slow and steady voice.
Yes. And she says, I'm friends with Worf and Nikolai. Yes. I know them. They're my friends. I know them. So that,
makes them so genius. Makes you my friend.
Yeah. So genius to make that connection with somebody who, some names that he's familiar with. So that way he doesn't just keep spiraling. Like I wouldn't even be able to comprehend what she's saying right now because I'd be freaking out, you know?
Yeah. Thank God for Troy. Because she really knows how to sort of restore calm in a really good way. And she kind of matches, she brings out a calm energy that like he can kind of start matching, you know what I mean? Where she's like, you're friends with Nikolai and Worf and so am I. And that makes you my friend. And I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. And my first thought was wipe his memory. Which is
the very first thing Beverly tries. Yep. And then only to come to find out their physiology is so strange, which I don't buy that either.
Really? All they have the nose ridge different from us. Like, come on, man.
And we don't know their internal structures, but I feel like you can mind wipe like a lot of different civilizations.
Yeah.
And Beverly, you have come through in the clutch in so many times. Surely you can figure this out in like another 10 minutes.
I love that she just goes, can't do it.
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Troy, you? No? Hypnotize him or something?
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. But there's nothing. And Picard, explains what happened to him. Yeah. And he's like, you're on a starship, Nikolai reached out to us and he saved you guys. And this is, the deal. And, in the holodeck at the same time, Nikolai is leading the Boralans to their salvation. And Worf fills Nikolai in on the whole Vorin situation. And Nikolai's like, well, what if he comes back and tells everyone what he's seen? And Worf's like, well, you should have thought of that. And I love that they immediately start kind of arguing about their childhood and who was the better child and who made mom cry more and all this crap. And I was like, this just goes to show, I don't fucking care how old you are. When you are with your siblings, you will return back to being 6 years old and arguing about who ate the lamb that one time or who made mom cry or who stole the sweater. Like every time.
It's really funny to see those kind of past patterns pop back up as if no time has gone by at all.
Yeah.
But also it's kind of sad because you're like, are we still talking about this?
Yeah.
Like, let's move on. We've got an actual issue right now, right here that we need to deal with.
Can you imagine going to a coworker and being like, when I was 7, my sister stole my sweater and I'm still mad about that. They'd be like, what? Get over that. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
You should have been over that by 7.5. Why are you still thinking about that?
Why?
Yeah, why did that
And you're going to bring it up at Thanksgiving? Really? You think that's the best time to do it? Okay. All right. I will not come to your Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah.
That's basically what's going on here. And Worf is he's so frustrated with Nikolai's just way of being in the world, which is very like footloose and fancy free.
Yeah.
And Nikolai is very frustrated with Worf's way of being in the world, which is so buttoned up and uptight
rigid.
And follow all the rules no matter what.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you know what? We've just got to like agree to disagree. We need to just stop talking to each other right now. So they have 8 hours at this point.
Yes.
Before they reach the planet. And the holodeck errors are increasing and increasing and increasing. And Worf is sitting at the campfire, looking at the stars, thinking about life and his choices. And Nikolai's girlfriend, who he's been like hugging and holding hands with this whole time.
Cuddling. Yeah.
Yeah. Cuddling, comes over to talk to Worf and is basically like, can you please, whatever Nikolai said to you, can you just please forgive him? Because I want there to be peace between the two of you. And I want us to be a family. Because after all, you are going to be the uncle to my child. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And I wrote in my notes, like, again, short-sighted. What is she going to think when she has a half human baby?
Yeah.
When are you going to tell her, oh, by the way, I'm not really Baralan? because we don't know if that baby's going to come out with a forehead dot. It might
Girl,
not.
you're absolutely. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think that. You're
Like,
totally
the
right. Where
F?
it's
This is
like,
two different species.
girl,
What are you thinking?
yeah.
Like, this was the most short-sighted decision of all the decisions he's made so far, is to bring a child into the world with the baby mama not even knowing that you're not even that you're an alien. Like, I don't know.
Listen,
Just,
I don't have kids. I have no plans to have kids, so I'm cool with it. But if I were ever to get pregnant and somebody was like, by the way, I'm Klingon, I'd be like, and you're just now telling me this? Really? Get the hell out. Get on your starship and get out of here. Leave. Just leave. Yeah. By the way, you and I are not really big DS9ers, but there are a lot of big DS9 super fans, and for good reason. It's got tons and tons of like great ratings and it's like lots of great aspects. The woman who plays Dabara is played by Penny Johnson, who would go on to play Cassidy Yates in Deep Space Nine. So if you are a Yates fan from DS9, this is her being Dabara in TNG, which I thought was kind of cool.
that is cool. And I actually really like her. I like her in the scene. I like this character.
Yeah.
I like how she plays it. I love her outfit.
Her outfit's great. Yeah.
Yeah. But Nikolai, I was just like, for real, dude,
Man.
like, come on. You just impregnated the first woman you found. How long have you been canoodling with these people? You're supposed to be in the observation deck or whatever the F.
Yeah, you remember that stupid ass Proto Vulcan episode?
Yes,
like
I
nobody
do.
was mating with those fucking Proto Vulcans. Talk about prime directive. Like, what are you doing? You do not leave the duck blind ever.
Basically, don't put this man in any alien world that's pre-warp, because
Listen,
he's gonna mix and mingle and do his thing.
I feel like flying by the seat of your pants can be a very attractive way to live when you're like in your 20s. But this dude's like 58. Come on, man. No, sir. No, sir. This is not the way right here. This is not the way. Meanwhile, the holodeck is like zoom, 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 right? Like it's having all sorts of problems. And Geordi's like, I'm doing everything I can. You're just going to have to figure it out, man. Like, I don't know.
So,
Right.
so the people are like panicking because the sky is like, when
Black
the holodeck,
and yellow.
Yeah, when the holodeck pops in, it sort of looks like lightning. Like it could be lightning, but also why does it look like that? But it's enough. It's weird enough for people to be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So Nikolai has another genius idea and is like, everybody, it's a storm. Oh wait, is this that part?
Yeah.
Did I go ahead? Okay.
Yeah. No,
no. Everybody, it's a storm.
Get in the tent.
Get into your tents because my brother is a seer and he can also control storms. I was like, man, this seer can do just about everything.
Yeah, he is Storm from X-Men also. Yeah, he really,
right?
He can see it all. So, you know, Worf does come to Jordan. He's like, Geordi, can you give me like thunder, lightning, storm, clouds, all that shit? Because now they've arrived at the planet, right? So it's like, okay, we're having some technical issues. It's just going to be a little bit longer, you know. So they end up
Geordi whips up a huge storm.
Yeah, a big ass storm, like a gale. And everybody's hiding in their tents, and half the people are like, a tent isn't going to protect us. And I was like, that's right, buddy. It won't.
Yes. No, it won't.
But Nikolai's like, but Worf will protect you inside your tents from the storm, whatever. And so like they beam while everybody's in the tent, they beam everybody, including the tents, to the planet surface where there are no storms. And they're like, ta-da!
And the storm immediately stops because there's no storm on the planet or a holodeck to generate a storm.
Yeah.
So suddenly all the wind and everything is gone. And everybody comes out of their tents and they're like, oh, we have been saved.
Amazing.
Huzzah. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, they huzzawed a bunch. Yeah. Yeah, it was all like, okay. Now, meanwhile, though, while this is happening, Voren wants to go back to his people, but he doesn't know if he can tell the other Boralans because, like, they might think he's crazy, but, like, he knows what he saw and he doesn't want to live his life being labeled as a madman. And Picard's like, maybe they will believe you. And he's like, yeah, but, like, really to what end, right? And so he's like, I need time to think. So while all this storm and shit is happening in the holodeck and everybody's beamed down, he's made a decision. So Picard and Beverly...
Picard does invite him to stay on the ship, too, because he's like, I want to go back with my people, but I can't tell them the truth. And I also don't want to lie to them for the rest of my life. So, like, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. And so Picard says, you can stay with us and just start a whole new life.
Mm-hmm. You can. But, like, God, you are the only one of your species.
Mm-hmm. He'll be just like Data.
Yeah, he'll be just like Data, but without the murderous brother. Yeah. But, like, just like Data.
As far as we
really,
know.
I mean, that's really, yeah. And, like, he does make a decision and he does a ritual suicide and they find him dead on his bed, like, holding the chronicle. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, like that was really sad. Like, and I feel like when he told Picard he needed time to think, we saw one tear go down his face. And I was like, I think he knew then. I think he knew then what he was going to do. Or what he felt he had to do. I don't know. But oh my God. I always feel like suicide is never the option, but you know, but Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, he felt like he didn't have any way out. He couldn't live with his people without either being isolated from them because he'd be seen as a madman for telling them the truth, or isolated from them because he'd be lying to them forever because he would know the truth, or isolated from everyone by staying on the Enterprise. Yeah. So he didn't feel like he had any options. And Picard says, you know, I wish Warren would have made a different choice because he could have bridged the gap between our two cultures. Like he could have still had a place in society. It wouldn't have been the same place. He wouldn't have been the chronicler. He wouldn't have been a part of his society the way he was, but he could have been an ambassador. He could have helped bridge them into warp society. He could have done many things. Yeah. You know, he could have introduced them to alien species and then got more genes in the gene pool and expanded their lives. I mean, he could have done a lot of, he had a lot of potential, but he couldn't see that. He just saw that he didn't fit in and he didn't know what else to do. So that was a really sad moment.
I know.
Then we go back to the planet and we see Nikolai and Worf again, kind of like squaring off because Nikolai had told him earlier, like, if you want to get me off this planet, you're going to have to kill me. So now that they're talking, he's like I said, you're going to have to kill me. Come on, Nikolai. Over dramatic much?
You're 58.
Kill you.
You're like, 58. Stop living like you're 20. Stop it.
I'm not going to shoot you with a phaser because you're not. Come on, man. So
I'm not going to batleth you to death. Like, come on. Yeah. What do you honestly expect?
Worf is like, I don't want to fight you. And so they kind of just like make a truce and they hug it out.
Which I thought was kind of cute because I was like, Worf is not a hugger at all.
He's not a hugger. He's not, but you can tell Nikolai is a big hugger. So
yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Such a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Although, girl, if you ever watch Goodfellas, you're like, that dude is freaking terrifying. That dude never hugged anybody in his whole life. so Paul Sorvino, absolutely stunning actor. He crushed it in this guest role, which I thought was lovely. And you know, when Worf goes to leave, he asks to take one of the Chronicles with him. And I was like, dude, Vorn only managed to get 6 Chronicles. He died clutching one, and now you're taking one? That's only 4 Chronicles.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, if you really want a Chronicle for like, you know, a keepsake, just use the one Warren has. He doesn't need it anymore.
He's dead.
Like they might bury him in space with it, but you could also have it to like honor his memory or whatever. Don't take one of the ones they have. This is their, or I was like, you could just make a copy, like scan it with your tricorder. Now you can look at it whenever you want.
A copy or whatever. Yeah.
Or just, I thought the same thing. I was like, they only had so many and there is one on the ship that is not being used right now. Why are you taking one of their only few ones left?
I mean, Worf didn't know that at the time, but still, I was like, even still, dude.
I guess so. I mean, he knew why Warren left.
6, yeah, if there's only 6, and you didn't even know about Vorin taking one and whatever, there's only 5.
Yeah,
it's 5. Like, what do you do anyway? Yeah. Yeah.
You know what was interesting about what Vorin said back when he was talking to Picard? He said that a people without, you know, he was like, I can't tell them the truth because it'll change the way they think of themselves and like it'll change everything. And without our history and our stories, who are we? And it's this idea of like knowing that we're not alone in the universe changes our central place in the universe. We don't feel like we're the center anymore, which changes how we think of everything. But then he also said the thing about like without our histories, without our past, like we're nothing or whatever. Like who are we? Yeah. And I just thought, wow, I really strongly disagree with that. Like I get that who you are is based on your past and your history and your people and your culture. All of that is extremely valuable. I'm not discounting it. But what I'm saying is that you can also determine your future. Like you decide who you're going to be. You're not just your past. You're not just your culture. You're not just your family. You're not just your history. You're also creating new things for other people's futures. You know, like you can decide who you are. And so I just felt like, you know, if let's say you grew up in this house, you've been living in this house your whole life. You've got memories as a little kid in this house. Maybe your parents passed away and they gave you this house. You're raising your kids in this house and then the house catches fire and burns to the ground. Yeah. You didn't lose everything you are. You didn't lose who you are. Yeah. You lost your house.
Stuff. Yeah.
You lost your stuff. You lost your photos, not your memories. You lost your house, not your family, not the values and lessons that you gained from them. And it kind of reminds me of that those people with the Shellyak, and the Shellyak were like, get off our planet or we're going to exterminate you. And they were like, this is our home. You're not going to get us off our home.
Really, though.
And it's like, this was your home. Turns out, though, belongs to the Shellyak. So y'all better get out of here. They're going to kill you. And like,
isn't it better to just like live somewhere else
than to die in your quote unquote home?
Yeah.
Because
couldn't we just pull like a Rozhenko maneuver and beam those mofos onto a holodeck that looks like that planet and then just, you know, retroactively fixing
so many times in so many places. But yeah, so like, I don't know, it just reminded me of that, where I was just like, this idea that without this past, without this written history, or without this belief that we're the center of the universe, who we are as a people will be lost forever and gone, and we're like now nothing. And I think everything you are is still everything you are and more. You just get to like, you're modifying the statue. You're not smashing it to pieces. So anyways, I just thought that was interesting.
Well, what are your final thoughts on this week's episode?
I really like that concept of like, what are we going to do with these people and how are we going to rescue them? Like, I thought it was like that first one-liner you read at the very beginning of the episode, I thought was so interesting. But the episode as a whole, I felt was like, okay. I mean, there weren't any big parts of it that I was like, this was so stupid. This was like Aquiel or something. But there wasn't anything where I was like, oh, this was so great. It was like the Pegasus. I want to watch it over and over and over.
Yeah.
There wasn't that either. So, like, I don't know what I could do to make this episode better or more enjoyable or more engaging.
It was a solid B-, where it's like, it's okay. That's all right. Yeah.
You pass.
Yeah, you pass. But like, the episode was a lot better than I remember. But because I remembered it being a steaming pile of garbage. So I was like, it definitely was better than that. I did think that the pacing was quite good, because even like 2/3 of the way through, I was like, okay, we've got the people in the holodeck. We've got a plan. We're already finding a new planet for them. What is the other 15, 20 minutes going to be about? And it was about like Voran finding his way off, and then like the realization that, you know, like, oh my God, I'm on a starship. But I thought the pacing was done really well. Of course, Paul Sorvino was absolutely fantastic in this role. I really couldn't stand Picard in this episode, though. Like, he so strongly believes in the Prime Directive, but he's so willing to break it at the first fucking inconvenience. And he didn't entertain even one idea of how to help save these people. He wasn't like, options. Is there anything we can do? Can we create like a bubble? Can we, you know, like Nikolai had an idea that was actually really, really good. And it would have been perfect had it not been for some like system failures going around on the ship. But the fact that Picard didn't even like
try
2 seconds, like to try to save a group of people, I thought was like, he just came across as like really like discompassionate and really fucking heartless. I was like, you're kind of an a-hole in this episode, Picard. I'm not going to lie. Like, you were kind of a dick. So did not love that. Really happy to put that one behind me. But guys, it only gets worse. Next week, we are breaking down season 7, episode 14, Sub Rosa. Thank you so much for nerding out with us this week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.